APNU AFC promised more jobs and a good life. Instead, we lost 30,000 jobs. Taxes went up, people are less safe, and cost of living skyrocketed. Now, after 4 years of neglect and corruption, the APNU AFC gang are coming with more empty promises, only cause they need you now. We are smart. Fool me once, shame on you. This time, we will not be fooled by your sneaky fake news, APNU promises. We vote in PPPC to get Guyana working again.
Good evening and welcome to Square Talk. It is Monday, July 15, 2019, and of course, I'm happy to be joining you again. And we will this evening be taking you through a number of happenings in Guyana. But just before I go there, let me remind you that we're going live via the People's Progressive Party Civic Facebook, as well as Freedom Radio 91.1 via Facebook and on the air, and of course, right as well through NTN radio and television. And I want to really dwell this evening on the question of integrity, assessing our president's integrity and the lack thereof, particularly because the job of a president is an important one, and of course, we as the people of Guyana must be able to have some confidence in the person who leads our country and who is responsible for our affairs as a people. And what we have seen from the inception of the David Granger administration was a question surrounding his integrity and that of his government in the whole. And we learned during the 2015 campaign about the many promises this government made to the people of Guyana. Promises that said that they will be taking us through journeys to a good life, and promises that made commitments to delivering on the goods and services to make our lives better as Guyanese. We have come to witness that nothing President Granger and his cabal and said during those campaigns turned out to be the reality when they got into government. They have breached 98% of the promises they made to the people of Guyana. They have failed to fulfill 98% of the promises to the people of Guyana. They never acted on the things they said and claimed they will do for the people of Guyana. Instead, the things they didn't promise us, we have seen made their way as the priority for this government, such as increasing their salaries and benefits from between 50% to 100% in many cases, the ministers' salaries and benefits that goes to the members of the cabinet, and a few friends and family that surround or belong to the government officials, meaning those who make up the cabinet. And they have been the beneficiaries. They have taken the hog of what was said to be belonging to the people of Guyana. It is a few people that can benefit from all the lands, thousands of acres of land, while this government failed to develop one single house lot on its own. The house lots the few they've been able to distribute to people between 2015 to now have been those developed and initiated under the People's Progressive Party Civic and was repossessed from other people to give to others. And we have ministers with 3 plots of lands, and we have ministers with mansions, and we have ministers whose husbands are getting contracts within the same ministry where the wife works to build houses. And we have ministers whose company are getting jobs through the ministry that they're working in. And we have a whole lot of horror stories about the level of corruption in this government. But I don't want to dwell primarily on the corruption issue this evening. I want to deal with the integrity of the person called David Granger. And in fact, many thousands of Guyanese have had questions about Granger's integrity from the inception. That is why thousands of Guyanese did not vote for David Granger to be president of this country. That is why the voting at the last elections, 2015, saw a narrow margin of 4,000 odd votes, meaning the APNU AFC leading by a small margin of votes. Why didn't so many other people voted for him? Because they did not trust him. Nevertheless, in keeping with democratic principles and in keeping with what was best for Guyana, David Granger came into power. The PPP conceded and they came to power. To what experience? To an experience that the president and his cabinet did not fulfill 98% of the things they claimed they would do for the people of Guyana. They started off by saying there was no money in the treasury, but then they increased their salaries between 50 to 100%. They started off by saying they were going to do, within 100 days, raise people's salary to 50% and other percentages. We have not seen that by this government. And so we have a government that is untrustworthy, led by a visionless president, and it is now a caretaker government. They're now our caretakers for the sake of being there to deal with routine matters on a daily basis and to take us through elections. What we have found, that the government is using every single opportunity there is to delay these elections. Deliberately so, we are seeing the maneuverings and the techniques by this government that will have frustrated and have brought us to the level of disgust. Be wary of their behavior that is so dishonest and untrustworthy. Led by David Granger, the president, who is now a caretaker president, as the ruling of the CCJ confirmed, now take us through all sorts of tactics and techniques that are all geared towards delaying these elections. And we, the people of Guyana, thousands upon thousands of Guyanese, are so badly in need of these elections to bring relief to their lives. They depend on these elections. They rely on these elections because people want to get rid of this government, not because it is just about getting rid of people, but because they have been a total failure, an absolute disaster for the people of this country. They don't have our interests at heart. Their interest of this government is to fill their pockets and, of course, to be as incompetent as they've been, and the incompetence seems to be growing by the days and the minutes. One would thought that even if a government started off with its, and there must be some teething and issues and so forth, but now, being in the 5th year of their term, the government seemed to be now more so familiar and accustomed, and the government is making mistakes upon mistakes more and more. In addition to all the dishonest, untrustworthy, undependable acts we see them commit on a daily basis, and in particularly to these elections. This caretaker government, because that is the status at the moment, they're just there to facilitate the holding of elections by September 18. September 18 is the day by which these elections ought to be held, given the ruling of the CCJ And we look forward to these elections being held. And so we have a president that talks one thing and does something else, acts in a different way, and acts away from what his words differently from his utterances. And so there's a mismatch. And this has to be definitely an issue of integrity. The absence of being honesty, the absence of trustworthiness, and the absence of dependability. And I want to dare add that both Forbes Burnham and late President Hoyt, both late presidents, never during their tenure caused David Granger to head the army. He was in the military, he was bypassed. And the suspicion and the story around that is that he could never, though he was the person who they identified for certain menial tasks and to do some of their biddings, he was never trusted to head the army. And that must mean something to us. He was never trusted to head the army. They brought Norman McLean at one time from the National Service and put him to head the army, and then he was bypassed again in the time of President Desmond Hoy. And it means something. His integrity could not be trusted at any point. And therefore, we are experiencing what has been an established characteristic of this person called David Granger. And he tried to remake his image. And today, he can no longer, and in fact before today, from the inception of his presidency, we have seen how fictitious his character, in the sense that he's not what he pretends to be. And you could kneel long all day and all night. You could kneel long in church, you could kneel long at your bedside, you could kneel long anywhere else. Kneeling doesn't in any way confirm that an individual is righteous, that an individual is honest, that an individual is trustworthy, and an individual is dependable. And so we've had all sorts of semantics and antics coming from this president and the government in general, because they are totally afraid of these elections. And so we are in a caretaker mode, and the government cannot proceed in a direction where it makes serious and important and important decisions, and the sort of spending that a normal government would do. This government is restrained from acting in this manner and operationalizing the normal functions of a government, because they're now curtailed and they're restricted and restrained from such normal functions of a government. And so I want to play you this evening a few tapes. And I'm doing this primarily because I want you to pay careful attention. First of all, I want you to pay careful attention, and primarily because I want to establish a pattern, and I want to buttress my argument using these videos that I will show you very shortly, and you will be able to make and to come to the same conclusion that the thousands of others, if you haven't yet come to the conclusion that we have a president that is untrustworthy and, of course, undependable, and therefore we have an integrity crisis with the government of the David Granger. And so I will ask the operator to take us to the first video, and I want you to listen carefully. I'll come back on and then we will go to the other videos. I want you to hear this video.
Individuals have spoken out. The letter columns are filled with criticism and condemnation of what the government has done. And the Catholic bishop has spoken out. And overseas, the international organization has started to speak out. The OAS has spoken out. And we will be writing, along with the Alliance for Change, we will be writing to CARICOM, other international bodies, to emphasize what has gone wrong in this country. This is a completely gratuitous act of malice against the citizens of this country. So I am confident that the public opinion, both inside and outside of Ghana, support a quick return to normal democracy and the removal of this prorogation so that we can get on with the business of Parliament.
So that's David Granger in 2014. In 2014, when the opposition then, comprising APNU and the AFC, brought a no confidence motion against the People's Progressive Party civic administration at that time. The administration avoided the no confidence motion, of course, and utilized a legal option in the Constitution called the prorogation of Parliament. Absolutely legal, but then it was criticized and condemned, and David Granger had a position on this matter and was seeking to was lambasting the administration for what he termed to be undemocratic behavior. And then again, I want you to listen to another second video by David Granger, and you will see again he speaks on this issue confidently. And listen to this second video.
Is the president, are you willing to say that the president is breaking the law?
He is not fulfilling the requirements of the Constitution. In a sense, how can this man decide not to have national, general, and regional elections? They're required in the Constitution. If he doesn't hold them, he's breaking the Constitution. Similarly, if he keeps fabricating excuses, he is in breach of the Constitution. It is a breach of the Constitution. And I would say that he can be impeached before the National Assembly. The Parliament could impeach him for being in breach of the Constitution. But unless he tells the public, the nation, the Guyanese people, by the 15th of September, what date election will be held, I know what I'm going to do. So I have not received a response. If between now and the 15th, he can tell me when the election. I'm not interested in GAF now. I'm interested in the date. And he must state the date. That is as much as I can say. And at present, I am mobilizing support internationally and nationally.
So you are convinced and confident that you will get the support of the people?
Yes.
David Granger back in 2014 again, speaking on the matter of the no confidence motion against the PPP. And he knew all that had to be done, had a position on all that needed to be done, and of course, dealing with the situation now, he says and does something else totally duplicitous. This is what you call a person without integrity, a person whose integrity is in question, a person who cannot be trusted, a person who is not credible. And he goes on and on and on at that time in 2014 about sanctions and all sorts of issues against the government. And he introduced the term caretaker government in Guyana, and today he refuses to adhere to the principles of a caretaker government. And he refuses to adhere to the principle of, in fact, the Constitution itself, which talks about having the cabinet resign on the successful passage of the no confidence motion. They refuse to resign the cabinet because they want the cabinet to remain intact so that they could continue to thief monies using the cabinet as a cover. But as we know, it is totally illegal at this time, and there will be in the future measures to address this illegality. And the breaches of the Constitution, spearheaded by David Granger, is what we all have to, as citizens of this country, persons who have this country at heart. I could have disappeared from this country. Many of you listening to me now could have disappeared from this country. Many of us could have migrated elsewhere, but we are here because we love our country and because we want to see the best for our country. But we cannot sit idly by and allow this president and the government to trample on our rights and our constitution in the manner they have been, and to the extent that we, the people of this country, will be in danger, total danger, in the pathway of destruction. And this is exactly what this government has created in this country, and want a situation where our country slides further downward. This time because of the breaches of the Constitution and the laws, and of course coupled with the corruption and everything else, the incompetence that we've seen that has become a normal feature of this government and its actions. And so I'll take you to another tape, and here it is again. You will be able to make a very good judgment on the extent of the integrity crisis of David Granger and his government.
The British High Commissioner said that it seems as though Guyana would have to come under review. But from your perspective, what benefits do you see Guyana gaining from such sanctions?
Well, the sanctions inevitably will affect all Guyanese citizens. We will all suffer once there are sanctions. The question is who will suffer most, and whether that period of suffering, which is bound to be short, is going to have the effect of bringing about a change in government's behavior. I do believe so. Sanctions will have a short-term effect, and we all hope that the government will be wise enough to act so that the sanctions are not prolonged. Other countries in the Commonwealth have been sanctioned before for breach of democracy. I know Fiji has been sanctioned, Pakistan has been sanctioned, Zimbabwe I think has been sanctioned. And it is in the interest of Guyana to avoid these sanctions, because these sanctions could have a deleterious effect on the economy and of course the way Guyana is perceived in other countries. You know, Guyana wants to attract foreign direct investment, Guyana wants tourists to come, Guyana wants to be able to access donor funding, you know, around the world. But when it is perceived widely that Guyana is a pariah state, Guyana is an outcast, there will be less willingness on the part of donor countries to pump money into what is becoming a failed state, to pump money into a country which does not practice democratic behavior. So Guyana is bound to be the loser, even if in the short term sanctions have an economic impact on the population because of denial of foreign funding. In the long term, I think we'll suffer. So I would say that the government be well advised to avoid sanctions and to comply with international norms. The government should end prorogation, let us have elections, and let us get back on the track for democracy.
There again you have it. So what sort of an individual have you come to the conclusion we are dealing with? This is someone who has an integrity crisis. This is someone who we can't trust. And mind you, we will be calling for sanctions against this government for the breaches of the Constitution in relation to the no confidence motion, and the fact that this government fails to have the cabinet resign, not the government, the cabinet resign. The government remains until the elections. But we have a caretaker government at the moment, and the caretaker is supposed to be taking care of the business of elections in 3 months. I'll open up the telephone lines. I'll give you, our viewers, an opportunity to make your contributions. I have some more tips to play this evening, but I will open up the telephone lines just about now so that you can make your contributions. And please remember to turn the volume of your television set down before you get through to us. The number to call, 226-3310. It's on your screen. And we go to the first caller on the line. Yes, good evening.
Good night, Kwame.
Yes, good night.
All indication, they actually want to rig in the next election. So they are working on the rigging machinery. And when they have that in first place, then they are going to set a date. Why don't we ask the Carter Center? Because they are the ones who formulated the Constitution for the election, that if they could assist and resolve this issue and ask the UN body to play a role.
Yeah. All right. Thank you very much for your suggestion, and it is in keeping with several other suggestions similar to what we've heard and you see in the press and so forth. But the opposition is engaging every single partner. From the UN and elsewhere, we're engaging every single partner to be able to bring pressure on this government and to have them adhere to our constitution. So the Carter Center and everyone else will be involved. The leader of the opposition today met with the Secretary General of CARICOM, Mr. Erwin Lara, and of course he's briefed him, updated him on the position of the opposition and on the need for the president and the government to act in accordance with the constitution and to act at least to find this, well, I should say, try to use this opportunity to at least secure some integrity by acting in the right way and in the way the Constitution envisages and outlines that we should be acting in relation to the no confidence motion and in relation as well to the appointment of a new GCOM chairman. That's another issue we have seen the president taking a licking on, because Guyanese are smart, they understand these days, and I think that this man is set in a mindset, still in the mindset of the 60s, when you had one newspaper and one radio station, and so the government controlled the narratives and nobody else. You couldn't hear it from anywhere else. And so you had to almost resolve yourself to believe that what they were telling you had something to do with the truth. But these days, those days have long gone. We are in a modern era where technology and the social media and media in general is so popular and so widespread that it is hard to control people with those kinds of dangerous propaganda and tactics. And so people are informed and people are notified about all the happenings in this country minute by minute because of social media and the way media in general has transformed itself worldwide. And so what you have is the situation of the GCOM's chairman, and that again being used as a political football by the Granger administration with all sorts of tactics again as a way of delaying the elections, because if they delay the appointment of the new chairman, it means that the elections will be delayed. And we will be taking serious actions on these matters, and we will be engaging all our stakeholders internationally and else otherwise, so that we would have we will seek to push the government to comply with the Constitution and the laws of this country. And what we have is a dilly-dally tactics with a group from the government meeting deliberately to stall the hammering out of names for persons to be submitted to the president for him to select one person as chairman of the Elections Commission. The government side is unable to bring clarity to what they mean by having the names shortlisted from the 11 names the opposition submitted, to the informal process of hammering out. And so what are they? They can't give any guarantee that these names that they've shortlisted in their meeting are the names that enjoys the president's confidence, or at least the president's acceptability. And so we are at a standstill with this process. And then the president said, we're going to meet, even if it's Monday. I'm willing to meet to appoint a chairman of the Elections Commission. And guess what? The opposition has written Friday night, Saturday, Sunday to the president's representatives. And we have not, up to a day like today, heard any, well, I should say only once on Saturday. On Sunday, I believe, we've heard from them, and nothing in relation to moving the process, expediting the process. We asked for a day and time, and we said we were available during the weekend to meet, and we have not heard any word about meeting. Instead, they give some talk about some extraneous matter. Well, I should say extraneous because it's related to, but a matter that was not of any priority in the whole matter of the appointment of a chairman of GCOM. Maybe it's priority for them, but then again thinking it couldn't be, because the two persons they listed in the letter in the response on Sunday are already on the 8th list the president suggested to the leader of the opposition that he can consider. And so we have the whole confusion they're trying. They believe that the more confusion you throw into this, they would have an upper hand and they'll be able to distort and obfuscate the issue. And we have to be guarded, and we have to make sure that we don't allow this government to get away with this. Good evening.
Hi, good evening.
Yes.
You're calling. Right. Now, here, these people, they don't have no shame. Number one, they don't have any shame. They don't have no what you call it. Getting at work, it doesn't describe the indecency anymore. You understand? So, it's time for Comrade Barrett to do something and he to put some sanctions on them. And what would please me most is who got to get locked up, let them get locked up.
Yes.
And let the guy make people know we are not afraid. So, they don't believe that people are afraid of anybody. Nobody's not afraid. Alright? So not because people easy they're afraid. They're just looking down and observing.
Alright, thank you very much, caller. Thank you very much for your comment. And of course, I would like to have hear the views of all the callers. And we seem to have another caller here in the line. Yes, good evening. Hello, good evening.
Hello, good evening, Kwame.
Yes, good evening, sir.
Well, I see you got a crisis on integrity, but for the period of time I've seen the president has not declared that to get the Integrity Commission. Why is that so?
That too, the president has not made any declaration to the Integrity Commission. That's again is a question of integrity. That's why I'm saying he has an integrity crisis. This is an integrity crisis surrounding the president. And so you're right to remind us about that. I almost forgot. But it's also part of the whole question of his integrity. Thank you very much for coming through. That's the president. He should be leading by example. To have your assets declared by the Integrity Commission is law. And the president has failed to declare his assets, make his declarations to the Integrity Commission. And caller, I think that was such a timely reminder, because I almost forgot about that. Of course, there's so much to follow and to track. Good evening, and welcome to Square Talk.
Hi, good evening.
Yes, good evening, ma'am.
Good night, how are you doing?
Not too bad. How are yourself?
I'm good.
I'm happy to hear. Let's hear you further.
I think these people I should come out. I went to CCJ, why didn't I come out? If it was PDP, we had to pick and push.
Yeah. Well, I know, and we're all anxiously waiting the election so that we could have them out. There's so many people. There are thousands upon thousands of Guyanese who are weary of this government, frustrated by their incompetence and corruption, and the fact that it's just a few people who are benefiting from the good life at the top there, and people are totally fed up. And yes, the elections date, that is why the president needs to call the elections within 3 months, which will give us a date, an outer date by September 18, and we will go. Lowenfield and the others, let me tell you something, that you also have a duty to comply with the Constitution. GCOM and its actors in GCOM have every right to comply with the court, with our Constitution. And I want to say this as well, that there are court actions that can be taken against these officials for failing to carry out their duty and being in breach of the Constitution. This is outright nonsense, what GCOM is attempting to do. And I want to say this as well. Nothing that the chairman of the Elections Commission, the illegally appointed, unilaterally appointed chairman by David Granger, who was James Patterson, nothing that he did was legal because he was illegally there in the first place. So nothing that he did was legal. So I want you to take notice. I want everyone to take notice. And GCOM is trying to mess similarly with the Constitution as they continue to take instructions from Congress Place. But the people of this country are not stupid, Mr. Lowenfield and others, and we will be standing firm against these flagrant breaches of our Constitution, because it is downright wrong and it must not be condoned. What do we want to teach our children in this country? What do we want to teach them? Good evening.
Hi, Tommy. Good evening.
Yes, good evening.
It was the other side around. We just could have burned down and you would hear wiring.
Very well. That's true.
Just because England, they have more tools. That's why they are doing that.
Well, I think because it's the PPP, we don't advocate violence and we don't believe in taking violent means to get our message across and to get what is due to us and everything else. But we take firm actions. We will take condign measures outside of being violent and being burning down and all the likes that you know the PNC is capable of and have done. We will be fighting our case through our stakeholders and partners. We will hit the streets. We'll be firm. We will tackle the matters. We will not let down. We will not take this sitting down or lying down and rolling over. We will be firm. And this government will come to its senses very shortly. Will come to its senses. All right, thank you very much for coming through. 226-3310 is the number to call. Let's continue to listen to our views across the country. And we seem to have another caller here on the line. Good evening.
Hi, good evening, Kwame. How are you?
Not too bad. How are yourself?
Well, I'm okay. I'm here. I usually but I'm saying not in Ghana, we are in country. Couldn't agree that how he shows life. I just have a government. Now, we want to put a pattern of thing I can't. We send the money tomorrow. Never I protect. I just back.
Yes.
It's Friday. The man Kabbalah, corrupt man, and thank you.
Thank you very much for coming through, caller. And it couldn't be said better. We all are so familiar, totally familiar with what this government is all about. A total disaster. This country is blighted. Nothing is going right. Crime is so rampant. Corruption is unbeatable. And we have an incompetent government, as if they were contesting a competition, as incompetent as it can be. Good evening. Hello?
Good night.
Yes, good night.
I'm surprised at Kwame.
You surprised at me? Yes, I want you to speak up. What are you surprised at me with?
You saw that the boy who was charged was in jail how many years and never tried him. Why?
Who what?
You saw.
Sati what?
You saw.
Uh-huh.
Oh. You Never.
The boy who killed Saturday Saw was never tried?
No.
You are so uninformed and you're misguiding yourself, and it is unfortunate. You need to go back and check your facts, and you need to check your facts, ma'am.
Our track record is terrible, but I pray for you. I pray that God will save you.
I'm happy that you're praying for me. I would like God to save me as well. And of course, I want you need to pray. But let me tell you, I am of no level of significance at this time in comparison to what is taking place in this country. You need to have all your prayers directed towards David Granger and this government for its corrupt behavior, for breaching the Constitution, and for its incompetence. That is where you need to exercise, to have channel your energies, to pray for the government, to pray for the president, because we have an integrity crisis in this country. That means that we have a president and cabinet and government that is dishonest, untrustworthy, undependable, and of course is acting in the most counterproductive manner. And that is where my friend, I don't mind you praying for me. Anyone who wants to pray for me, that's fine. Pray for the best of Kwame Mc Coy. But at the same time, I will say that we need to prioritize your prayer. Your prayer at this time, and all of our prayer at this time, should be that God will come and speak to David Granger and his government to do the right thing, that they will come to the senses and do the right thing in keeping with the Constitution of this country. That is the prayer. We all need to hold hands, to have a chain prayer, and to say the prayer for David Granger and his cabinet, because they are in total violation of the Constitution, and God does not like disobedient people. God does not like people who kneel before him and can't do the things that he desires and the things that he has mandated, such as the Constitution of this country and them adhering to it. That's the prayer we all need to be saying this evening and for the next many days and many weeks as we head to the elections. So yes, my friend, you need to get your facts right in part, but that's where I will end with your comment. Good evening.
Good night, Mr. Kwame.
Good night, yes, sir.
You have them busy with them divorce, them to be married, so they're busy with them divorce now. I never get in there. And the big jackass has to pray.
All right, be careful your language, yes.
Yeah. He should pray for himself first.
I agree.
All right, sir.
Not everybody who kneel down at the altar, a little Lord. Anyway, let me
Yes,
say.
sir.
All right, thank you very much.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much.
226-3310 is the number to call. Let's continue to listen to our views across the country. And we seem to have another caller here on the line. Yes, good evening.
I call you good night.
Good night, sir.
I hear you all here talking about President Granger appointed James Patterson. Is illegal, right?
Yes. This is the first president has been declared for an illegal act.
You want to come in 20 months to spend in Parliament, when you refund back the money?
If what?
How many 20 months to spend in Parliament, when you refund back the money to the government?
Who will refund money? I'm not hear you.
I said you, it's Patterson.
Oh, Patterson should refund the money. I agree with you. That money can go to poor people. I agree with you. He should refund the money. We should try to recoup it. Maybe there needs to be a legal action. But let's see. But he needs to give back the money. He's collected money under false pretense. In fact, in an illegal manner, because he was illegally appointed. And any person with a character would have refused the appointment as a unilateral appointment, knowing that it is wrong and against the Constitution. And Patterson, being a former judge, ought to have known better. 226-3310 is the number to call. Let's continue to listen to our viewers across the country. And we seem to have another caller here on the line. Yes, good evening. Yes, good evening. Good evening. Well, tell that to President Granger. All of those things, God don't like a lot of things. God don't like people who cheat, people who lie, people who are untrustworthy. God don't like people who are in breach of the Constitution. God don't like people who breach the laws of their country. God don't like a lot of things. And recognizing that God doesn't like these things, people like you should come out and fight against the actions and the behavior of persons who seek to go against the likeness of God. Those are the things we should be preaching about. All right, Mr. 630, 3641. Those are the things we should be preaching about. 630, 3641. A number to flag. All right, good. So 679-188. Sorry. Oh, I'm sorry. I mistakenly called out that number. Yes, good evening.
Hi, good evening. You keep up your good work.
I thank you very much, and it's people like you who have me going in the thousands.
Beefface. He's very much beefface. Thank you. Have a blessed night.
Thank you very much. And there are thousands like you, sometimes not always heard on television, but there are thousands like you who give the encouragement to people like me to keep fighting for what is right in this country, for making a case and a point about the flagrant violations of our constitution, for all the wrongs of this government, for the things that they're doing that are not in keeping with the values of morality, not in keeping with our constitution and our laws, and the things that they do that is not in keeping with the likeness of God. So if we're going to talk about God, let's talk about God in a balanced way, in the most balanced manner, and not to use God's name in a way that seeks to almost contradict what God is all about. And so I want you to understand that this is a serious situation and we have to deal with it as a people of this country. Good evening. Hello, good evening. Hello? All right. So we seem to have lost that caller there. 226-3310. I still have another tape I would like to bring you back to. So I will be very shortly taking you to that piece of footage. Good evening.
That's all right, Kwame.
Yes, good evening.
Look, people talk, people, you are speaking the truth, the truth sets everybody free. You know about people talking about Kwame and this or Kwame and that.
I'm unbothered by these people. You should know me by now after 18 years in television. I'm unbothered by them and what they say. I am focused on what is the truth and what is about being right. And I am focused on letting the people of this country know and understand our situations. And I am focused on staying on course and staying on point and not allowing people like those to distract me. I have for me, it's duty. I believe this is a calling that I have to be able to deal with matters of my country because I love Guyana and I want to see our country going the right way. So I'm not bothered by anyone who calls and tries to throw me off with all sorts of silly comments.
Kwame, you're 100% in order.
Thank you.
100% in order. I say you keep going all the time. We have thousands of people to come out on the street and to put things in place against this corrupt government. We will be all following Baratageo and the team and F1. They are doing excellent job and people will follow them and follow them to ensure that this corrupt government get out of there.
Thank you very much. And I'll take you back to some footage, and this is again will demonstrate the untrustworthiness, the dishonesty, and the integrity crisis of David Granger.
The meeting agreed that the process will be completed within the shortest possible time. In fact, the president indicated that he would like this process to be completed within days.
So the leader of the opposition is free to submit the names which have already been submitted in the 3 previous iterations. And he has agreed to confirm that those persons are still willing to have their names forwarded. So the names that have been submitted before are not eliminated. I said that it was up to the leader of the opposition to submit names of persons who had already been submitted on previous 3 lists. Despite the meetings between the 2 sides, the leader of the opposition rejected the idea of acting in a consensual manner.
He chose to put forward candidates for the post who have already been rejected. It's crucial to appoint a chairman of the Elections Commission. This could be done as early as Monday.
So that footage demonstrates clearly my point about the lacking of integrity of our president. He said and is committed that the leader of the opposition will review the list of the 80 names from the 3 lists he's previously submitted in 2017. He will review that list and those lists and adjust them appropriately, meaning those who still would like their names to go up and to submit it to him. Then when the leader of the opposition did that, in the president's address last week, he said that the leader of the opposition was not cooperating, more or less, because he resubmitted those names that he had previously rejected. What else do you want me to say here this evening, to do, to tell you, to show you, that will demonstrate conclusively that we have a president that has an integrity crisis, that has a president that is untrustworthy, and a government that is deceitful, undependable, and are taking us through a cycle of frustration, all because they want to delay the elections. Every day that this government delays the election, I average that we are losing more than $29 million per day through theft by this government. $29 million thereabout through theft by this government. $29 million. And this is why they want to delay, because the more they can stay in government is the more they can steal. It's the more they can steal monies and have it in their pockets. And this is no ordinary matter. This is no simple matter we're dealing with. This is the most corrupt government in 40 years in the entire Caribbean. The most corrupt government. You've seen the report. And this is a government that cannot be trusted altogether. So we have to fight this. We have to come out in our numbers. We have to go in front of the Elections Commission. We have to go in front of the President's office. We have to go wherever we have to go to make sure that the government adheres to our Constitution, because their absence of them doing the right thing will put our country in jeopardy. Good evening.
Good night, sir. How are you doing, man?
Well, not too bad. How are you? You sound bright.
Well, how the ball bowling now, man?
Well, you see the ball coming and we batting.
Well, if you have Satan running the place, what do you expect now, the qualities of Satan?
Well, I could imagine, yes. If
Satan's quality is hypocritical,
yeah,
counterfeit,
yes.
and total disregard for the Constitution and the law.
Well, my friend, that's what we're all experiencing. And we did warn people about this from the beginning. This man cannot be trusted. We know his history. Look at the Stabat News report that had reported him as an anti-Indian racist. And he has been a person associated with all sorts of behavior that deems him untrustworthy and undependable. And we have a task ahead of us.
That's Satan reincarnation.
All right, thank you very much for coming through. 2263310 is the number to call. Let's continue to listen to our viewers across the country. And of course, my friends, this is a situation where we all have to stand up for what is right, and of course to preserve the decency, to preserve the integrity of our Constitution, and to make sure that we are not contributing to the smearing of our country. Already we are being spoken about horribly around the world, and it is all because of this President Granger and his cabal, who is now in a caretaker mode. Good evening.
Good evening, Kwame.
Yes, sir.
The caretaking government showing them hiring right now. You know the devil hiring? coming out the caretaking president that we got right now. And we phoned up away in 2015 that he come with the clothes and he put on his sheep there. That was innocent. But now, the iron coming out. And he's showing me who really he is. Yes. And the tape that you showed the last time, yep, the guy is people who got still can't see that how this man is dishonest way. There's no, we can't cure them just now.
Yes.
If this just not seen that this man is dishonest, we can't cure him. It's like what happened in America right now with Donald Trump. It's a racist thing he's doing and his own party.
All right, thank you. All right, thank you very much for coming through, caller. And the president said we will resolve the GCOM matter in days, and yet still we have gone past days. We're now in week. We're in our nights, and the GCOM chairman issue has not been resolved. And then he said that in his address last week that I'm willing to appoint the chairman and even on Monday. Today being his birthday, of course, he's making us an ass again. Sorry, fooling us again. And I'm willing to. Even today, we haven't had any word as to when we will be meeting to have this issue resolved. And this all behavior of a person who is untrustworthy, a person who cannot be depended on, a person who is dishonest, and a person with an integrity crisis. This really is what it is. It is what it is. And so, my friends, we'll not be fooled. This government will not fool us again. Good evening. Hello, good evening. Hello. Seem to have lost that caller there. We will not be fooled because at the end of the day, this government, it's just like the promises they have made to the people of this country and not fulfill any of them. Unashamed about it. They walk around. It's only after the no confidence motion they start to walk around on all sorts of outreaches and this reaches and that, spending up our monies for all sorts of fanciful outreaches and millions of dollars in plane rides and bus rides and kickbacks to their friends and family. This is what we have in this country. Totally unfortunate. And we have a duty to come out against what is taking place in this country. Good evening.
Hi, good evening, Kwame.
Yes, sir.
Oh, we love you. We love you, what you're doing for us.
I thank you very much.
You're speaking not for me, not for the percentage, you're speaking for all guys. I can show that because you are defending democracy. And we love that, and we hope that we get them out earlier rather than later. You have a good night, Governor.
Thank you very much, caller, for coming through. I'll just take one more call, I believe I can, and then I'll have to exit tonight's program. Yes, good evening.
Well, good evening.
Yes, sir.
Someday you're going to listen to people.
Sorry?
You're going to listen sometimes.
I have to listen. I've been doing that all night, all year. For 18 years, I've been listening to people.
You see, truth can never be lied.
Mm-hmm.
You understand?
Mm-hmm.
And truth doesn't always be true.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody knows what Constitution now. What about 23 years? Nobody knows the Constitution.
Well, sir, you gave me an example where 23 years the government refused to call elections within the Constitution.
Listen to me.
No, hold on. Give me an example. That's all I'm dealing with this evening, the elections. Give me an example where the government of the People's Progressive Party Civic refused to call elections in 23 years. Give me one example.
When the parliament was prorogued.
When the parliament was prorogued, that's a legal option within the Constitution to prorogue the parliament, sir. It is not something that was illegal. It was prorogued and then elections was called. Right? It was prorogued and then the elections was called.
You can't listen to me, so listening to you.
Continue.
You have better prorogue, right? You got 7 months after, a year after this election kind.
That's a lie. Total lie. No election wasn't called a year after. You are lying, and I have to thank you very much for coming through. You are being untruthful. You're misguiding yourself, trying to mislead people, and I thank you very much. You came on here to throw us off
and to derail. And I don't mind you coming from the other side and having a different view. I love that because that gives me the great energy I need to carry through this program. But when you come out here and you try to be blatantly lie to the people of this country, then we prorogue the primary election was not held in no year. It was held within the constitutionally due time, and it was not a year. All right? So we know how you trying to make a mockery of this, of yourself, basically basically to lie about the situation back then in 2014. But we have matters, and even if you want to say that, this government came into power, the president said he will never breach the Constitution, he will never trample on the Constitution. This is the first president has been declared by a court as having breached our Constitution. The first president of this country to have been declared by the court to breach the Constitution in this manner. A declaration. There have been other claims of court, but not validated by the courts. And we know every day the procurement breaches, etc. So, my friends, we have to be truthful. If you want to come through here, we have to be truthful. I'm not going to sit down and allow you to talk. Yes, I'm going to allow you to speak, but I'm going to challenge your lies and dishonesty. I'm going to challenge it. All right. So I thank you very much for coming through on this evening's program. This is all the time I have. I have to go, and I thank you, our viewers, for coming through the telephone lines. I think we had a very lively discussion and, of course, a very informative program. And I ask you to stay in touch, look at the People's Progressive Party Civic Facebook, follow us and all that we're doing. And, of course, I thank you and bid you God's blessings and see you next Monday.